Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now? We've finally scored some goals. We've beat Kilmarnock by 2-1 in a game that ended up being quite nail-bitery, didn't it? It felt like we were coming into this game, trying to put some of the grey noise and mess behind us coming into this one. Focus on the pitch, focus on the performance, and hopefully Brendan and the boys could go and bag the 3 points, which of course they eventually did. In this game, we've seen a bit of a surprise to the starting 11, as well as who ended up being the hero on the day. In the video today, we will break down everything we've seen at Rugby Park from Celtic versus Kilmarnock, the good, the bad, the refereeing decisions, and everything else in between. At any point in the video, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And get into the comment section on this one, Jungle Gyms, and let me know your big feelings, your takeaways from the game at the weekend, the winners and losers, who stood up and became counted, and who maybe just let the game wash by them, who made an impact and who didn't, as well as how you're feeling now about some of the new faces and names that we've got in the squad for the season coming ahead. But yeah, this is a game that had a lot of meat on the bones, a lot of stuff to get our teeth stuck into. So let's just get stuck straight into it. Because I've been really excited to come on and do this breakdown video since the full-time whistle went. But I actually was in Belfast this weekend seeing my friend John Nellis. He just hit 10 million subscribers on YouTube, had a bit of a get-together. And I got to meet some of our subscribers, some of our friends from Belfast over the weekend. But I must be one of the few people ever that comes back from Belfast with some jet lag, just with the time of the flights and my sleep pattern. Everything's been all over the shop. So I couldn't record right after the game. I was just absolutely done in. I wanted a wee bit of time to reflect and get my wits about me before coming at it. But yeah, there was plenty to go on in this game, and I'm not really too sure where to pick up. So I guess we'll start off with, the surprise inclusions in the team, which were Marcelo Sirache and Colby Donovan. I think for the most part, McBride, when we did the Thursday stream, he had Tuneke in to start. I did find this surprising, but, now that everything's unravelled and thinking about where he is in his season, having came from Sweden, the surface and all that kind of stuff as well, it made sense. It worked out, obviously, man of the match. But I think Sirache and Donovan were definitely the two eyebrow raisers on the starting 11 on the team sheet, as well as some of the omissions from the bench. No Johnny Kenny, no Shin Yamada. The only striker we have on the bench is, of course, new signing Iheanacho. But what was also quite revealing about the starting 11, the team that Brendan selected to go out and start this game, was in fact Maeda playing through the middle, because with the introduction of Balikwisha, the signing of Tuneke, the acquisition as well of Iheanacho, it did give us the potential to mix things up a little bit in the front line. And the way we've mixed it up, of course, is by playing Maeda through the middle, which worked out well, of course, in this one. But I thought we might have seen Iheanacho come in from the start, or maybe even someone like Johnny Kenny, who made the Europa League squad, has scored domestically already this year. But no, we've went for what Brendan thinks and believes, I think, at this point in time, is out of everyone that's fit and available, and that will change as Iheanacho gets up to speed, I'm sure, the best front three to go out and try and win this game. And before I can really talk about what went well for us and who did play well and who didn't, I think the best thing to kind of highlight and to put out there is what we got from Kilmarnock, okay? Now, Kilmarnock and a lot of teams that we play against in the league are very tight, very narrow, very compact, and try and play on counter-attacks. And Kettlewell's Motherwell team, as well as a few other wins in the league over the last couple of years, seem to have this tried and tested formula of having three centre midfielders, a back five, and then a front two to go on and press. And depending on the team, the opposition, the personnel for that can get a bit muddy, but for all intents and purposes, this is the sort of shape, as you see it on screen, that we get a lot of opposition teams setting up for. Now, where Kilmarnock did well with this for me is their centre-back three and their midfield three didn't really give much space in between them. It was quite hard, actually, to get through the centre of the pitch, which is what a lot of teams want to do with us, okay? Now, we've been quite smart at focusing down one side of the pitch over the last couple of seasons, and this game was quite the same. It was obvious from kickoff we were really going to try and focus a lot more down our left-hand side. I don't think we wanted to put Colby Donovan in the deep end and then put the Sharks in and around him. We're going to let him get into the deep end and get himself floating, get himself, up to tempo before asking more of him later in the game. So it was all about trying to get Sirache on the ball, trying to get Hatate into these areas here, and eventually putting Tuneke one-on-one with Brown at every opportunity available. And normally the teams that we play against have got a nice kind of little way of falling back into shape with their strikers to make sure that we're not able to overload them in the wide areas. And this has been a big part of the problem that we've had in wide areas, is it's been so difficult to get the ball from out wide, ideally in a 1v1 situation, to actually get into the box. But for me, Kilmarnock's rest defence, or how they were going to shape up when we were pushing them back into their own box, and how they were going to try and stop us from getting shots away, etc., was nice on paper, but it was very flawed, and it was really the undoing of them at almost every opportunity. David Watson, who scores the goal in this game, is a name that viewers of the channel will be very familiar with, as a player we often highlight and earmark as a domestic talent. That if we were ever to do a Luke McCowan, or if we really did want Lennon Miller and we didn't quite get him, is someone that we should be keeping tabs on, we should be keeping an eye on. So hopefully some of you viewers on the channel that are familiar with the name would have seen this guy actually put in a great shift. Obviously got the goal and whatever, but he did put in a big shift. He was very much more the midfielder that was asked to follow Hatate into difficult spaces, to go into the wide areas and try and press these guys whenever it was wide left, which then meant that Daniels was having to come back into midfield, and then off the ball, this is the sort of midfield 4 that Kilmarnock were using to stop us when we were kind of pressing them back in. And I get the logic behind that because of the energy they got out of Watson, the energy they got out of McKenzie on the left hand side, where at all possible. But this really did fall down, because when you've got that attacker coming in from the centre area to fill into midfield, and you're asking for the centre midfielder to go out into the wide area, normally what a lot of these teams do, if we can go backwards to go forwards for a second here, is that rather than asking the guy Daniels to slot in here, if you think about, I don't know, Aberdeen, St Mirren, these types of teams, the forward that's going to come back and help out is the one that will come into the wide area and be asked to kind of do this so that the rest of the midfield can stay in compact, can stay with their runners and make it really tight to play in these areas as quickly as possible. Whereas when you're waiting for this guy to come back in from a higher position, and then you're asking for this guy to jump out, there's just too many moving pieces, too many moving parts where space can open up for different players to pop in. Maeda didn't get many touches in this game, but we did see 1 or 2 opportunities for him in that sense. We've seen Hatate getting some space in these little pockets as well. But when the defence is deep and in and around its own box, and when the midfield is really kind of deep and narrow and trying to kill that space in between defence and midfield so we can't play within it, you really do lose a lot of width. And in multiple periods in this game, we get huge pockets of space out in these wide areas here, where the Kilmarnock players weren't protecting the territory, they weren't killing passing spaces necessarily, and if we did get them to recover and retreat back in towards their box, and then when we did that thing where we maybe go sideways or go backwards, we were actually finding a player in tons of area and tons of space that was able to play a killer ball. Now, last time we did a video like this, we get copyright flagged, so I can't even have this on super slow motion. We're going to need to use still frames, okay? But the ball comes out into the wide left area here, and because if we look at the midfield 3 here, we've got Watson, this should be Polvar for whatever his name is, and then out all the way here is McKenzie. So their midfield 3 is really like, it's came over lopsided, hasn't it? But it's the gap between the other 2 guys is the main problem here that this guy, Daniels, is meant to be solving for them. As you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All 10 players of Kilmarnock are back in their own half, and this is the sort of thing that we are normally really struggling to come up against and break down, because in normal situations your boy Watson, who's out here facing up with Sriracha, would be back into this midfield 3 shape here, and the boy Daniels would be, or one of the strikers, you can see Dackers, whatever his name is, up on the halfway line there, they would be the ones that would be confronting the defender that's coming into picture. And we got the ball into pockets of space like this very, very often, and thankfully, down to their bad plan is probably the best way of putting it, we were able to get into these positions a lot more often and play some lovely balls. Particularly, a lot of balls come down to the left hand side here from Sriracha to Tuneke, or from one of the centre players out to Tuneke, and he'd be able one-on-one to take his man on and do something with it. But on this occasion, we got one of those rare things that we don't see enough of, that we have been begging for here on the channel, and that is McGregor on the front foot, facing forward. Now, the amount of times, like, McGregor had a great game, right? And this is kind of part of the reason I wanted to highlight the inefficiencies here that we've got in Kilmarnock. As you can see now, Daniels is back in next to Negren here in this midfield 4 with the likes of McKenzie, Polworth and Watson. But by him dropping back in there and leaving just the one forward up top here, the guy Dackers, McGregor has got all this space in and around him. And normally McGregor is really, really bad for just playing that ball out here and hitting Anthony Ralston, Alistair Johnson, one of the easier fullbacks, or he'll maybe play it sideways to Vickers or back to Scales and tell Scales to then pass to Sriracha, or something like that. But none of these things actually happen. And I think a big part of the reason for that is the movement of Tuneke, because as soon as the ball comes into McGregor here from Sriracha and he is on the front foot, he has the entire Kilmarnock team on their haunches, on their heels here. Tuneke smells blood in the water, and this channel is an absolutely brilliant run for him to be making, and he is on his toes, and this is what you call making the decision for him. And it just further highlights the quality that McGregor's got, because from these positions here, what McGregor doesn't do enough of is play those balls into these areas here, is actually use his range of passing to, when we have got them into a delicate position, rip them open, get someone a chance from it. And McGregor made a few nice moves in this game that were a huge departure from the sort of criticism that he's been getting. You know, he still had a wee bit of the sidewards and the backwards about him, but there was a lot more front foot effort. McGregor actually got into the final third a lot more, and passes like this are exactly what we want. Look at that defence splitting pass, putting Tuneke straight one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and unlucky he's maybe not got enough time or space to make a good connection before it comes out. Now this was, you know, as much as we did a bit better with this was also quite frustrating, because if we weren't going down in the left-hand side in the first half with the likes of McGregor, Sriracha, Tuneke and Hatate popping into these pockets here, we would try and go down the right-hand side. Now, from Ballywasha, Ballywisha, Ballakawisha and everything else, I don't know why, but Celtic fans really struggle with Ballakwisha's name. So I've just put it here in true Scots in case it is a tongue twister for you. Ballakwisha would be firmly on the right hand side, very, very wide, and looking to try and isolate the number 3 as often as possible. We did have Negren really coming out into the wide areas with Donovan, and you know, like, Kilmarnock didn't do a very good job compared to other teams that we've seen in the past of making these spaces really tight and really hard to play out of. I think we had, more often than not, a 3v3, which kind of boils down to like a 1v1. We had enough situations like that where it would be 3v3, 2v2, essentially 1v1 depending on how many people are out there, and we never really seemed to get clicking. It never really seemed to get going. When it did click for us, when it really did make a bit of a difference, is when we've got Negren wandering, particularly over to the left hand side here, and forcing Daniels into doing some defensive work, or pulling Poolworth a yard or two out of position, maybe engaging David Watson and making him come out of position. And the few occasions where we've seen Negren actually travelling over to this side of the pitch here is the occasions where we get Tuneke on the run, where Sriracha's had a nice little bit of play, or the few occasions where we have managed to find Dyson into these types of areas, or Hatate. But these things didn't happen too often. We were very much limited to playing in the wide areas. And one of the big mistakes Kilmarnock made in this game for some reason is they were really happy to leave Tuneke one-on-one with Brown. Now, I don't know how many times we've played against these teams and our wingers have been allowed to be 1v1. Not very many. There's normally a huge onus on that supporting striker, whoever's going to come back and defend, doubling up, or allowing one of these midfielders to double up because this guy's covering the fullback, which wasn't the case today. And it becomes a lot harder for Yang and for, you know, whoever else, Kuhn, anyone, you name it, because there's two guys out here to deal with, whereas quite a lot in this game we were able to exploit the weakness that Kilmarnock had by choosing to play the way they did to get Tuneke one-on-one with Brown, and I think he really relished it and was everyone's man of the match. He did absolutely fantastic and showed that direct front foot dribbling appetite that we get from Yang, and also mixed it with some of that delivery, some of that execution that we've maybe seen from the likes of Palma and Kuhn previously. You know, we've not really had too many wingers over the last couple of transfer windows that we pluck out of obscurity and they actually look the part. I did say when I looked at the initial highlights of Tuneke that I would put him above Yang and Palma and a lot of these other guys for how good they look on arrival, without actually knowing too much about them, and, you know, let's see how well they go. And he really did back all of that up and really put a cherry on top of the cake with a lot of his movement. Quite unlucky not to get anything in this game, whether it be goals, assists, or even a penalty, one or two. But with them playing in this type of shape where Dees was a little bit freer to try and stick with Maeda, which again in theory is a nice idea, where you've got a defender that's a bit more proactive to watch out where the forward goes. They let Mayo be a bit deeper of the three, and you kind of seen their centre backs almost sitting like a midfield three sometimes. And again, in theory this works out really well, but Dyson was doing a great job of starting on one side, coming into blind spots, showing up in other areas, and we'll look at his goal shortly, but a fantastic striker movement to really have these back three chasing shadows, not really knowing where their man is, to get himself free eventually for the header. But with us kind of reading the room and seeing how narrow that Kilmarnock we were able to get a lot of the ball into these wide areas a lot more often and try and, I say put Taneke one-on-one, try and make something happen. But, again, we just really lacked that kind of willpower, that kind of drive and intensity to, the occasions when the two strikers would be challenging our defence and David Watson wouldn't be too far behind, maybe trying to give somebody a hard time, is finding those gaps that emerge to try and go directly through the opponent, try and get Maeda straight one-on-one with the goalkeeper down facing towards goal. Again, in the first half, we were just very, very limited to playing in the wide area. And I'll say it again about Balikwisha, second game in a row really, but it really did feel that he was left out there and on his own. Negren did give him some support on occasions whenever the play was static and we were able to put different pieces. And, you know the way we set up. Hatate goes to one side, Negren goes to the other, McGregor's in the middle, and then we're picking what side we want to attack down. And it just didn't really click. It just didn't really work. We never got anything out of Donovan in terms of an attacking presence in the first half. It was very much felt like he was in a defence situation, like just protect this side. We're going to let Sriracha go a little bit more. We're going to let Taneke go a little bit more. And to cover up for that, we want you tucking in a bit narrow and giving some support to Vickers and Scales in here who might be dragged around the pitch. And again, with Daniels dropping deeper, there was only really one forward to watch out for. And I felt that although the first half was quite stale, we didn't really do too much. We read them very well. We set it up ourselves very, very well. And we were unlucky to maybe not convert one or two of the chances we had. Now, this is the start of the move for the goal, okay? And the thing I want to really highlight here, there's a few things we'll get into, but again, you can see the Kilmarnock midfield three are actually a lot more narrow together. You can see the gap between them and their defence. It's very narrow. There's not too much space in between here. But the player to keep your eye on as we go through this is Dyson Maeda. He's just peeled off the kind of centre right-hand side to make this move in between the... we've got the right back out here, along with two centre-backs. So he's peeling in between this middle centre-back and the left side of centre-back, trying to get Hatate to slice a ball through this type of channel here, which I definitely think Hatate's got in him, but he's just not read it, he's not seen it, or he's maybe hoping for a nice wee floaty one to come in over the top, which again doesn't come. Hatate decides to lay this one off to Negren, and this is where we get a fuller picture of the setup in the system here. Their back five is right in the box. You can see how narrow the left winger is here, the left wing back, where he's not too far away from the penalty spot, not too far away from the semicircle in the D. And as Negren takes a few touches here to, see where Hatate is going to move to, where are the defence going to move to, where's the space going to open up, you can see even here the striker, what's his name, Daniels, the guy who was giving it big licks, he is the one that is retreating in. There's no cover in the wide spaces for them. You can see again how high Colby Donovan is. Again, not really in a wide position, still quite tucked in, isn't he? But very, very high in the pitch, and we're exploiting the spaces that they're giving us by not having that left mid, right mid cover from their front two, and their wing backs being so deep. Where really, again, if you look at the defence throughout this, they are really trying to organise, they're really trying to firefight on the job here. Where's the space, where's the balls, where's the pass going to go? Now you can see the left back is clocked Dyson, but between the rest of the defenders, it's only really your man here who's only got eyes for facing forward that knows Dyson's on the move. He's just wrapped around that shoulder. So Dyson started here, and he's made a run right around this way, and now he's came back into this position here to try and get back onside. And because how deep and narrow the Kilmarnock defence is here, and even with the boy Daniels coming back into the picture, he's not really going to stop this. We have got acres of space in the wide pockets. Where a simple ball out here to Sriracha. Now, you can look at how desperate David Watson is here. He knows I'm meant to be the wide support. I'm meant to be the guy that's getting out here to Sriracha and making things really difficult for him. Everyone else is getting on their heels. Everyone's looking over their shoulder. With Dyson Maeda is now clocked by these two guys because he's ended up on the other side of the pitch from where he started. And as you can see, Negren's on the front foot. Hatate is on his toes, ready to receive the ball. And the ball could even go out to Taneke. Sriracha's got a lot of options here, which gives the Kilmarnock defence a real headache. They don't know where the ball's going to go. And generally speaking, we move the ball really quickly. And I would say 9 times out of 10, if this was Tierney, Taylor, Valley, take your pick, we're getting an easy ball out to here for him to go one-on-one with the right back again. Or we're going to get a shite bag move and we're going to get it played back into McGregor, who might even play one of the defenders before trying to go out to the right-hand side. But the great thing about Sriracha is he's not long in the door and he's pretty experienced. So this is a guy that's had success at delivering crosses from the left-back area for a number of years, for a number of different clubs and managers and a lot of different football styles. And it really doesn't matter who you play for or what your philosophy is. There is some things in football that will just always remain true, and that is early crosses are dangerous. And early crosses from deep, if they can be connected on, are very, very dangerous. Now, I'll do my best to get the freeze frame here where we want it, but as the ball comes to Sriracha, just watch Daisen Maeda. As soon as he gets himself back into that onside position, he just takes a few steps, just jostles, and the natural movement of the back three is going to bring him back onside here. He gives the point, he gives the shout, Sriracha sees it, and although McGregor is telling him to play it to left back, or to him maybe, he sees Daisen, he's going to hit the ball into the box, he's going for it because we've not had enough shots. Now, brownie points have to go here to Hatate and Negren, because if he does try and fizz a ball on the deck, maybe between Watson and one of the other midfielders or whatever, there's a good chance that Negren and or Hatate are in a very good position on the edge of the box to do something. But again, early crosses from deep, we know how dangerous they can be. And Daisen just holds his run. He knows the defence are going to fall back because of just the way it goes. And this is the striker movement you want to see, right? Because Daisen knows at this point, I'm going to peel off and I'm going to go into this area here. The reason you want to be doing that is you want to be ball side of the defender, right? You want to be able to get to the ball before the defender you're closest to, but you also want to get in and behind. You want to see someone's number. Again, you've maybe heard that before, a bit of a cliche, but you want to get in and behind another defender where they've got no chance of knowing where you're at and the likely ability you've got to connect with the ball. And Adam Ida and a bunch of strikers we've had at different times, they hide. And what do I mean by that? They stay in this lane here and they try and stay behind this defender that they've got so close to, stay in his blind spot, run off the back of him, and then hope this ball can beat everyone and find you in no man's land, being absolutely free to receive it. But Daisen is much more of a striker in that regard. He's much more willing to put himself in where it's going to hurt and to make the harder run, the one that is actually where you should be going to try and optimise the situation. The ball from Sriracha is lovely. It takes absolutely everyone out. And Daisen's still got a lot to do here when the ball's in the air, but he's managed to buy himself enough space off the man that was meant to be marking him just by moving from left to right, changes his body weight, let that guy retreat and panic a little bit more. And then look at this zone that he's got himself into, in and between the centre-backs. And as long as he can get a good connection on this, which we know he can, then it's only going to be hitting the back of the net. But again, just to highlight, Balikwisha, the wide right player, he's in a good position here. He's not been found because the ball's not for him. But again, very wide. And when we did get into the box, just to kind of highlight him quietly here since he's in frame, he found himself in this position quite a lot, and the ball never really travelled to that side of the goal from the left. And I think had it done, he'd have probably done a bit more in this game and we might have got something more out of him in this one. So that was a lovely development for us to see. Is like Daisen didn't get many touches in this game, but was constantly making those movements where he was, intertwined with the back three, giving them a real headache for where is he, who's on him. And because of this kind of weird shape they had, where sometimes it would look kind of back fourish with D's being a wee bit in front to block that space between defence and midfield, and obviously quite a lot of the time it would be like a back five with Mayo being a bit deeper, which gave Daisen some nice little pockets to be available for onside, to be available for some of these runs that he made from some of the balls that were played to him into these types of channels. But I suppose that takes us on to Balikwisha, like we've mentioned a few times. Never really got going in this game, and to be honest with you, for everything, all the invention and all the industry that Tuneki showed in this game, there's really no reason that Balikwisha couldn't have shown us a bit more. In the derby match, one-on-one versus Tavernier a few times, which we spoke about, but also in this game, because this guy, Lewis Thompson, or whatever his full name is, was really narrow, was very happy to drop back in here and be a centre-back at times, and we didn't change the point of attack often enough to try and find Balikwisha in that same big pocket of space that we found for Sriracha in the second clip and for McGregor in the first clip. And I think had this been a game that we played a few weeks ago, we would have actually got Balikwisha on the ball a lot more often and something might have came of it. But a big part of the problem with Balikwisha and the teams in the initial stages, for my money, in my opinion, is that the team he's just left have been playing him in the Ben Negren position, where he's been a midfielder, a creative attacking midfielder who in the centre area was getting lots of touches of the ball and was in control of playing the ball out to a winger, then going and supporting them in a wide area, playing off the front man, getting the ball from the back, maybe switch the play, then move into a pocket of space himself. Whereas for the first 2 games for us, once on the left and once on the right, he has just been high and wide. And these are tactics I enjoy doing whenever I've been a football coach. Having your front three high and wide is a great way to stretch a back four and to make sure you've always got a diagonal, you've always got a quick switch. It gives you lots of great options, but we never really use them. So that's why I think like any criticism or any kind of like underwhelming feeling that comes around Balikwisha, I'm very much reminiscent on Kuhn's introduction into the team, and I'm also very mindful of the reality that although Donovan, and we'll speak about this in a second, right, did get further up the pitch later, he never really got high up the pitch when Balikwisha was playing, and Negren did come into these pockets here, but it wasn't that often, and if he did, Hatate was never coming over to support him. If we did get the double midfield support, it would be on the left-hand side, when Negren would come into these centre areas. Hatate would be a bit freer, like we've highlighted in both of those clips, in fact. So I do feel that Balikwisha has been a isolated man in the pitch, and if we are focusing down the left, Balikwisha is basically coming into the Dyson Maeda role when Dyson was playing out left, where we are wanting to focus down the right, we are wanting to take a lot of the opposition, a lot of the markers, a lot of the attention down this side of the pitch here, so much so that Lewis Thompson comes into the middle like he did, and then if the ball that we send doesn't get to Dyson, have we got someone at the back post to finish it? Yes, we do, or we would have. Or if we're going to do the whole change the point of attack thing, do we have a guy that we could cheat our way into getting acres of space on one side of the pitch that if we can switch it within a pass or two, we can then get something going from? And I think positionally he did quite well today, or on the game day, but when he is on the ball, that's 2 games in a row where I think we can all agree we've not seen him do anything. He's not really done much yet. Now, I need to still double check the statistics on this, but in the statistics I check up on, Balikwisha has got 0 missed passes in this game, and I do think all of his touches and flicks and passes do look good. They all seem to be coming off. And I think his corner delivery from the right-hand side that we got here, he'd be hitting them on the right side inverted. We'd get Negren hitting them inside with the left foot inverted, or in-swinging, sorry. I thought they were really good deliveries. I thought they went into really nice areas, and we were really unlucky not to have someone getting on the end of it. And that's something that we might see develop in time as well. Now we go 1-0 up, and then we make the changes. Sriracha comes off for Kieran Tierney, and Balikwisha comes off for James Forrest. Now I get Balikwisha coming off for Forrest on contribution, because like I said, there wasn't really much there, right? But the thing that annoyed me about this, right, is Tierney came on to do the Donovan shift, essentially. Tierney came in, and we've seen him get up the pitch once, maybe twice, but that was a real push. We didn't get him really pushing on and supporting Tuneke or overlapping him very often beyond the once or twice it did happen. But when Tierney came on, it gave a bit more permission, it gave a bit more onus to Donovan getting a lot higher and trying to support Forrest. Now, Forrest in this game was mince. Forrest in this game really showed his limitations. Forrest in this game really showed just the reality of where he's at in his Celtic career at the moment. And I think playing the thick end of 40 minutes in this game was too much. Forrest at no point in this game took anyone on, like we've seen him do this season, which has been one of the things that's, people have been saying before we made the sign, is Forrest is our best winger. And that's because when he has started, and fair enough, he's been mad burned out this year, he'll take a guy on and he'll try and play across. But in this game, when he came on, he was much safer. All of Forrest's stuff was coming inside or coming backwards. And it wasn't actually until Donovan got really let off the leash here that we started to actually penetrate down the right-hand side. Donovan is a huge factor for the penalty one that we eventually got. He doesn't give up on the cause. He gets himself into this area here before the cutback for the shot from McKeown. Ends up kind of ricocheting off here. But then we focus down the right-hand side a lot more, and I don't know why we're taking Balikwisha off at 60 minutes for Forrest. If you're going to do the Tierney Sriracha thing, fine. If you're going to let Donovan off the leash more, fine. But why don't we leave Balikwisha on the pitch for another 10-15 minutes to try and get some joy out of that, to get his name in the match, as it were, before we bring on Forrest to finish the job, as it were. We're 1-0 up, of course, at this stage. It felt too much like Forrest was coming on at that stage, and that was just the end of it. And I don't think tactically, reading of the game wise, that was really the right time to be doing that, because when we are changing the side, we're then going to ask bigger questions on the left after we've ran the right ragged. We want to see, them being really asked some big questions, and having Donovan really support Balikwisha rather than Forrest on this side of the pitch. I think we could have went up gears. I think we could have done a lot better in the second half. Not too long after that, we get Polwarth, we get McKenzie and Daniels all coming off for Thompson, Kiltie and Anderson. And I can't guarantee you where all these guys played, to be honest with you, because once these subs come on, the shape of everything starts to change. My focus is much more on what Celtic are doing, but for the most part, they've made 3 changes there to try and tighten it up a little bit and to try and still play for set pieces, trying to get out whenever they can. We then follow that up with Hatate and Dyson making way for Iheanacho. Now, I must say, guys, I was the first to tweet Iheanacho, and I've seen it everywhere ever since. I don't have much patter, but I know what patter's mine, and Iheanacho is 100% a CeltsAreHere, a Quinny original, and McKeown comes on for Hatate. Now, I thought this was quite interesting, no Engels, but McKeown is the guy you want, I think, to come on against Kilmarnock in the last couple of minutes with his track record he's had for Celtic last year, as well as his domestic experience, and I thought this was an interesting move. I'm surprised not to see Engels, especially on the left-hand side of midfield here, but fine. McKeown's got energy, he gets around the pitch, he can tackle, he's quite feisty that way, and he puts himself in where it hurts, and, you know, obviously he's ended up taking the shot eventually, which led to the penalty, which was nice. But Iheanacho, I'm hearing a lot of people who are saying that, like, he didn't do that great up until the penalty, and I don't think he really had too much to do, but there was one moment where he did come on where he really dropped into this pocket here, got maybe a pass off of McGregor, and then straight away played it out wide. And honestly, if you know the section of the game I'm talking about, you'll remember it, because we've not had anyone do this. But he came in here, 1 or 2 touches, popped it off out wide, and then he fucking sprinted, and he was right up on the last line of defence again, looking for another one of those Dyson balls to get played into him. I can't remember how the sequence of play eventually panned out. I don't think we found him. But Iheanacho is a natural centre forward, has all assets of the game thoroughly in the book, has been there, seen it, been taught it, done it, and it's all about for us, can he really show more of that than what we've had from other centre forwards will be a big positive. And I think had he had a bit longer on the pitch, had we signed him earlier in the season, he'd been up to speed, when you would see more of that from him. But this is something I'd like to highlight at this stage for everyone to watch out on, is that speed, that intensity of popping into a pocket, 1 or 2 touches, and then running back onto the defence. Because for the striker, the big advantage you get there is if you're played in quickly, no one's marking you. You're travelling, you're on the front foot, and everyone else is backpedaling. And that's a type of goal we'd never really score anymore, and I'd love to see us get back to. So something to maybe watch out for. They then bring off the boy Brown for Marley Watkins towards the end, bringing our striker on. And again, is there maybe some sort of readjustment here? Do they go to a back 4, like a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-4-2 diamond? It's kind of hard to say at that point. Pardon me. Kilte is for Stranger. And then when Stanger comes off, it's for Williams. And then at the very death, at the very end, we bring off Tuneki herself for Yang, which I did think was quite interesting, to be honest with you. And I don't think he even touched the ball, to be honest with you, but there you go. Now, this was a good game, right? We played well. I think Carter Vickers is somebody I've not spoken about yet that I wanted to give big praise, big plaudits to, because him and McGregor in this game were much more front-facing, much more so than what we've seen in recent weeks or even recent years. Vickers had some lovely spells in this game where he just took the grass, just went forward and tried to fizz a few passes in and between the lines and really progress him up the pitch. Vickers even ended up on the edge of the box for another one of those curly toe shots. Sadly, this one never went in, but I thought Vickers was imperious in this game, and it kind of flipped because a few games ago, Scales looked imperious, didn't put a foot wrong, didn't miss a pass, and Vickers was a wee bit out of sorts, but it's went back to normal business in this game. I thought Vickers was outstanding, did some of the extra stuff that he's normally got as a criticism. Scales missed a pass or two, but otherwise, again, was still like defensively quite sound. But Scales having recently reached some new heights, felt like maybe 1 or 2 of those mistakes maybe just undone them ever so slightly. But yeah, McGregor was still doing the backwards, sideways stuff, was doing a lot less of the trying to land aeroplanes, a lot less of the shouting and pointing stuff than what we've used to seeing. So maybe he's now a subscriber on CeltsAreHere and he's seen our critique of the training video that went out last week. But McGregor often was getting into these areas, into these zones, and was making a huge difference in the left-hand side of the attack for us in the first half. And Vickers did a great job of progressing the ball as well. So I did want to single them out because they're normally 2 of the first guys I'm highlighting as being the problem that stops us creating more chances and getting forward quicker because they're too safe, they're too conservative. So it was great to see both of them actually just take the handbrake off a little bit, realise your position as being a dominant team, as being Celtic, and exploiting Kilmarnock. And like I've mentioned earlier, I tried to highlight at the beginning, Kilmarnock really did make it easy for us because of how they ran their midfield, with it being a narrow 3, with Watson being the one that would spring out into the wide areas, and then asking for their striker to fill in the gaps. It was just too many moving parts, and I just don't think they were able to really get a handle on their own tactics in the game. And we just read it and dominated. I think this Kilmarnock side, although they had some chances, they scored from a set piece and whatever, they were one of the least threatening sides I think we've played this season and in a while, to be honest with you. I was rather surprised by that from a Kilmarnock and a Kettlewell point of view. They're normally got a bit more of a punch to give. And yeah, they did score. They did make it quite nail-bitey towards the end. We did get out of jail with a penalty. But when I say get out of jail, I mean, like, you know, it was at the last kick of the game. It was the last thing to happen, and otherwise it would have been a draw, which, considering the Hearts result against Rangers, wouldn't have been a good draw for us to get, would it? But Kobe Donovan doesn't give up the ghost. He's the one that really makes a lot of this happen. He cuts it back for the edge of the box for Luke McKeown to strike it. Now, as we look at it here, the goalkeeper is right on his left-hand side post here. The rest of the goal is gaping open. So if any shot's on target, it is hitting the back of the net. There's no two ways about it. Now, as he shoots, there's the first deflection that comes off the foot of this guy here, and it ricochets the ball, which is about to come off the man's hand. Now, the thing with this, okay, that's worth highlighting at this point, right, is that the shot is on target, right? The shot is going to be hitting the back of the net because of where the goalkeeper is and the empty net and all the rest of it. Now, when it takes a deflection off the first guy here, the only way this isn't a penalty is if the shot is definitely not going to remain on target. I don't know why I kept thinking this was McKeown's shot, but it's actually Forrest's. Apologies, James. But yeah, the only way this isn't a penalty is if the shot isn't on target. Now, it does take this first deflection off of the boot before then, as you'll see it here, lifting up and hitting on the hand. But the number one thing, the referees went to VAR for this, right? So one of two things has happened. Either the referee doesn't think it's a shot on target, or he doesn't think it's a handball. Because if it's a shot on target and it's going to be hitting the back of the net, which this would have been, it would have been a shot on target. And even with the deflection, it's an empty net, the ball's spinning, there's a lot of pace on it. As you can see, just standing right here is another Celtic player. So there's plenty going on here where we are in contention of the ball. And when a handball is directly influencing a goal either happening or not, it is always given as a penalty. This has went against us far too many times for Celtic fans not to be aware of this already. That if you're in close proximity and it's a deflection, all that stuff, you didn't mean it, your natural body shape, none of it matters. If it's preventing a goal, empty net, shot on target, which it would have been, it's a penalty all day. So when I say get out of jail free, it's just for the simple fortuitous fact that it did happen when it happened in the match, precisely when we needed it and wanted it. But the fact that it's in close proximity to him, or it's a deflection that then hits his hand, none of that's relevant because it's a goal scoring opportunity. And if we come to look at the player ratings for the game at the weekend, we actually had some real green shoots for a change, which was lovely. The highest scorer on the day, will you believe it or not, is Marcelo Sarace, who I did think had a pretty good game. Obviously, he gets the assist, which is really the cherry on top of it. He didn't get his clean sheet bonus because he never played 60 minutes. He came off in the 58th minute. So I don't know if Celtic clean sheet bonuses are linked to that as well, but he's maybe been screwed. He's made a clearance, he's won a tackle, he's lost possession 12 times, which, you know, is fair enough, I suppose. But he's won 3 duels, only lost 1 of them. And I think considering the conditions, the opponent and everything else, I think he's did fantastic. 62 passes, 19 of them getting into the final third, which was lovely. 3 long passes into the opposition. He did miss 11 passes in total, which for a fullback is below average, I would say. It's not out the realm of normality, but it's on the lower end of it, which is good. And he got 3 balls into the box himself, obviously the one that ended up being the goal. So a 76 out of 100 performance for him. Right in and behind him, would you believe it, is Cameron Carter-Vickers. Now again, the boys didn't get a clean sheet in the end, so there's no clean sheet bonuses for anyone after the full 90 minutes. He made a fairly conceded a goal, of course, but outside of that, 8 clearances, a tackle, a nice wee block in there as well. 4 duels won, only 3 lost. But for passing, 102 passes in this game, only 2 missed. But although, like, I like seeing the 22 long balls into the opposition because those are forward passes that he's played into Balikwisha, into Donovan, into Negren, even those guys that are just further up the pitch in the opponent's half. And we don't get enough of that out of Carter-Vickers. That's 1 in 5 passes going forward. That's a much higher percentage than what we're used to for him. And overall, he had a great shift. He got 2 shots on target, one with a header as well in the first half, or from a corner. And he played 1 ball into the box as well. So CCV had a great shift in this one. Maeda is the next highest scorer with a 63. He's guaranteed 60 because he scored his goal. Outside of that, not really too much to write home about. He got his 1 shot on target. He made 5 passes, 2 of them in the final third. Made a big chance for somebody else or an attempted assist. Lost possession a few times. Didn't win as many duels as you would like, but Overall, a good centre forward shift, a lot of running, a lot of huffing and puffing, and about timing as well, being at the right place at the right time. McGregor was right behind him, didn't get a goal or an assist in this game, but brought in a 61.9 performance out of 100, which is good. He made a tackle, he made a block, was fouled, gave away a foul. The referee was terrible in the game, wasn't he, for fouls and stuff, but he won more duels than he lost, 2 interceptions, possession won and lost is in a really nice ratio. Only 69 passes for Callum McGregor, which again is fantastic. Too many games we came out of this with McGregor getting 75, 85 passes in a match, the majority of them sidewards and backwards, but for the lower volume, 69 passes here, 18 of them getting into the final third. 1/3 of McGregor's passes in this game. Much higher ratio, much more successful, and we felt that as we went through the game. Only 1 ball made into the box, he didn't get any shots away, so still a wee bit of room for improvement there for McGregor. And what we've highlighted from him in the game earlier when we showed the footage is that's what we want from McGregor in a deep lying midfield position. Is we want that creativity, we want that range of passing, and we want that execution. So I thought it was a much better performance from McGregor in terms of just the role, like being the most he can be in the role. And I think that's important to highlight. Now, in and behind those guys, nobody really pulled up massive trees in terms of their score, their statistics or whatever. But Negren, Tuneke, Donovan and Scales all trapping into the mid-50s with really solid contributions in and around the box or defensively in Scales' case. 111 passes for him, bunch of clearances, great shift. Kobe Donovan but is one of the ones I want to highlight because he really had a bit of everything. He got into the box, he played 9 balls into the box as well from right back, which is great. He made an attempted assist, which was the Forest shot. I thought it was McKibben. Apologies again, James. Which led to the penalty. 55 accurate passes, 17 of them into the final third, and he missed 12 passes in this game. And again, for a fullback, we just seen Srirachi missed 11. Very much within normal parameters, it's to be expected. Possession loss 21 on the high side, but still it's high, but still within normal kind of range. He won 7 duels, he only lost 3. Great ratio there. 1 block, 1 tackle, 7 effective clearances. Very well done for him. He only gave away 1 foul in this game. And normally we're used to a team exploiting our left-hand side, our weak side, and there was no fear from Donovan. There was no inclination from Kilmarnock that, oh, he's the weak link, let's go down the right-hand side today. So I think he really does come out of it with huge pass marks. And if we look at Tuneke here, he's got booked and made a foul. I thought that was a great tackle, and I thought that was exactly what we want to see. I heard Alan Morrison, I think it was, saying, it might have been Alan, if it wasn't Alan, it was Juco James or somebody like that. Or it might have even been Just. But one of these real big data-heavy guys said that Tuneke profiled very well as a wing-back, and his tenacity, his defensive energy really shone through, and I think that will be a real asset for us in a frontline player rather than a wing back type of thing, like it profiles as if it would work with. He lost possession 14 times, which for a winger, again, these wide players, it's to be expected. He won 6 duels, lost 5, made an interception, which was nice. 4 attempted assists, so he's made passes that have led to shots, which is good to see someone's doing that. But look at this, we've not had this in ages since Nicholas Kuhn, really. 38 passes in the game, 24 of them in the final third. Tuneke did say when he signed, I don't like to pass backwards, and it felt like he really lived and died by that in this game today, or at the weekend, whenever you're watching this. He got his 1 shot on goal, he won 5 contests, that's 5 dribbles, where he's beat his man, got by him and took him out of the game. Again, we've not had anyone put those numbers up in a long time. 6 balls into the box, and he got a big chance missed, and I think that's quite harsh. But I think statistically, XG, the position of where the shot came from, it's maybe just about accurate. But I do think Tuneke, and Negren's coming in for some criticism. I don't really get it. I think people are expecting him. He could have had a goal or 2 in this one. He got himself into good shooting positions. It just never really came off for him. And I think a lot of his movement, as you see with the packages, those clips that we made there, when he moved from the right into the centre, when he came over to the left-hand side, that's really when Kilmarnock started to malfunction. And I think a lot of his play was like secondary effective rather than primarily effective, if that's a nice way of categorising it. And then for the likes of Hatate and Balikwisha, just never really got anything going, did they, in this game? Off the bench, we get Iheanacho with his goal, obviously, but beyond that, no one else really done much to write home about. Now, I'm hoping from this point, Celtic can really kick on in a big way. We've seen the defence and McGregor be a bit more front-facing, be a bit more front-footed and ask more questions of the opposition away from home, a deep block defence and all the rest of it. And hopefully, this is the sign of things to come. We've seen some nice actual centre forward play in this game from Daizen Maeda and Iheanacho for my money. Can we see that continue to go? And now with Tuneke certainly on as a winger, the first Celtic style winger we've really had in a number of months, it feels like we're in the right trajectory, we're moving forward. It's going to be really interesting to see how Brendan manages the squad. How do we get the best out of Balikwisha? How do we unlock him? I think there's no getting around it. The 2 games he's played, he's not had enough support from his teammates, like we've seen with Tuneke and even with Daizen when he's played in the wide areas. So I don't think any criticism on Balikwisha is really fair or balanced, to be honest. Beyond, he should have done a bit more with the times he's on the ball, because I agree, I subscribe to that train of thought as well. And I think even though he's not had the best circumstances on the ball and he's not had that much support, he's had a moment in this game, maybe 2, and he's had a moment or 2 in the derby, but he could have done something and he didn't, you know. So it'll be interesting to see how we maximise him in the coming weeks. And really what the solution is for midfield, because I'm seeing a lot of people in the aftermath of this game, like I mentioned before, coming after Negren a little bit. Hatate, if he doesn't score or make an assist, his performances and his impact can be very quickly diminished. And the McGregor kind of bandwagon that, you know, we've kind of started here on CeltsAreHere has gained a lot of momentum. So there's a lot of discontent, a lot of unhappiness with the midfield construction. And the real problem with it is the construction of the midfield. If, again, we highlighted it earlier, but it's all about having McGregor in here in the linchpin, the metronome type position. I'm trying to get the tactics to reload again so I can find my midfielder, but it's McKeown. I'll just put him over here. And you know, like, the Kilmarnock really played into our hands in this way, right? Because normally our midfield do struggle. And again, I'm sorry, the dots are all over the place at this point, right? And that's because when this deep, compact and wide defensive shape comes up against us, we end up having a midfielder here, a midfielder there, one here, and they've got all of them behind the ball. They've got all of them in front of, and then taking these guys on, getting into these pockets of space to work with is really, really hard. But because Kilmarnock did a really bad job in this game for covering those wide spaces as much, we were then able to just pull people out of different positions, and then new pockets of space opened up that we don't normally get access to, that then just asked lots of different questions. So Kilmarnock really did play into our hands, but I hope that this is a learning lesson for Celtic at this point, because when we do set up like this, we are really missing someone to just get through the middle here and just connect everything out. I would like to see that be McGregor, especially when we've got fullbacks that are being a bit more narrow and being a bit more reserved at times. But if it's not going to be McGregor, like we've seen with Negren, we need one of them to break ranks, to rule break, to go over to the other side of the pitch and overload, and then cause these guys to have their head on a swivel and really watch over here. So I get the criticism with the midfield. I don't think it's a Bernardo, an Engels, an Hatate problem or solution type situation. I think it's general construction, general route to goal, and general phase of play management. Because your midfield, like I said, I've said it enough, when these guys are closer together, that's when the best play happens. And it feels like if we get a wake-up call for that, domestically against these narrow type blocks, we'll do a lot better. I think I said everything I wanted to. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. On screen now is some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. If you have enjoyed the video, please do hit like and subscribe for more content like this. And let me know your thoughts and feelings on the game. Any takeaways you would have thought we would have highlighted that we didn't. Anything that we did highlight that you thought, I didn't notice that, and it's gave you a bit of food for thought. Whatever it might be. Hail, hail, and moan the hoops.